What if the secret to success wasn't just talent or hard work, but unshakable confidence? Welcome to Grasp Confidence, the podcast where visionary thought leaders, speakers, and entrepreneurs unlock the mindset and strategies for lasting success. I'm your host, Tara LaFawn Gooch, CEO, two-time best-selling author, and international TEDx speaker, and I can't wait to help you step into the most powerful version of yourself. Let's dive in. Over the course of this podcast, I've had the privilege of interviewing 3 billionaires. And what's fascinating is that despite wildly different industries and backgrounds and personalities, they all share the same core truth. Money doesn't arrive when conditions are perfect. It arrives when excuses end. Today's guest lives squarely at that intersection of truth and execution. Meet Josh Greenbaum, the founder, advisor, and author who helps entrepreneurs build financially healthy businesses without spreadsheets, shame, or jargon. Through his book, Numbers Scare Me and Other Excuses, I love that title, his advisory firm, CFO Minded, and his forthcoming program, Josh reshapes how founders relate to money, not as a source of anxiety, but as a tool for clarity, choice, and freedom. Josh, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm excited to talk about all things money because it's not a source of happiness, but it is a way we can live fuller, richer lives. And I know you would agree with me on that one, right?
Wholeheartedly.
Josh, first off, I want to know a little bit about you, how this came to be. Like, how did you find that you wanted to do this as part of your purpose and your mission in life?
So there's 2 pieces. Number 1 is math was always my thing. Growing up, going to school, high school, whatnot, I love math. And what bridge I saw as a connection from math to accounting as my education in college is I really enjoyed the simplicity of the math within accounting and the ultimate puzzle that you're doing. That yes, things balance, yes, there's a bottom line, but also there's strategy involved. And I really enjoyed that piece. And that's what led me to that. So that was number 1. Number 2, what led me to consulting was after working with Big Four, which was a wonderful experience, I found so much more fulfillment personally and professionally working with small business. And it dawned on me as I began that journey unintentionally that the importance of bringing that sophistication that larger organizations often reap the benefit from, it's that the small business needs that. And they're the backbone of communities. They're the ones who really can benefit from that financial knowledge. And that's what I really enjoy bringing to people.
Oh, I love that. Because, guess what? The school system doesn't teach us how to make money, right?
Right.
So, and a lot of people's parents don't teach them how to make money. They prioritize consumption over creation and things like this. And that's, what we learn and how we're programmed over time, right? From the time we're very small.
Right.
And I mean, gosh, Josh, I'll be honest with you. I remember some of my childhood memories watching my mom. You remember those days when we balanced the checkbook by hand?
Yep.
It seems like it's like
write that check into the ledger and do the math.
Yes, I remember. Do you remember that?
Of course.
And, God bless her, she was stressed. Every time I saw her doing that activity, I could see and feel the anxiety. And you pick up on this in your sponge brain of a child's mind, and you say, this is scary. Money is scary. It's scarce, maybe.
Yeah.
And you start to tell yourself this story and program yourselves. And, sometimes this doesn't show up until later. And maybe you start a company or something like that, and then all of a sudden you start to feel all these blocks.
Very much.
Do you experience that with the founders that you work with as well?
Yeah, and each of them are unique and individual in their own way. Expanding on what you touched on, there's that relationship with debt of debt
Yeah.
is bad or debt is good. And not just that, I often also see the complexity that comes with a founder when they have a spouse or partner who maybe have even their own relationship with debt and money. And how do you navigate that? And so there's so many behaviors that are learned when we're young, and to echo what you said, that lack great to learn how to balance a checkbook, but useless when you don't understand the power of money. We'll say it that way. And for that then to perpetuate and continue into business, that it only becomes more complex, and not complex that it's over anyone's head, but complex in like a nuanced way of that perhaps you build an organization, you have other people you have to pay, and all these things, and it only perpetuates that fear that can exist in the excuses that people make.
What are the excuses? Let's get into the nitty-gritty, 'cause I feel like every excuse under the book not to do something, right?
Of course.
And we tell ourselves these excuses, and, the one thing I've realized, excuses make us feel good in that moment, don't they? They're like that blanket that's warm and cozy, because it doesn't force us to go outside of our comfort zone, right? Literally. But do they lead to progress? No. Do they lead to wealth? Absolutely not. So, what are these excuses so that we can first name it to tame it and identify these problems?
I think the number one excuse that I hear is that, and this is obviously echoing the title of my book, but that numbers scare me, or I'm not a math person. And my initial response back to that is, we're talking addition and subtraction. There's not a lot of complexity in it. And, one of the things that's kind of a parallel to this that leads around the excuses is, I call it the powerful branding of the IRS. When people get an IRS notice, sometimes they don't even want to open the envelope unless they're on Zoom with me or I'm sitting with them, and we'll open it. And sometimes it's just a notification that we got your tax return. Thank you. And the fear that exists around these things, again, to repeat, just paralyzes people. And also said that the excuses validate them. See, I'm right. I am bad at math. I am bad with numbers. I am bad with money. And that perpetuates into ways that lead to, I think, two behaviors. Number one, there's a lot of them blanketly said limiting beliefs, which then play into value of self and pricing, and how do I go to market, and am I let's speak to like the coaching world. Am I a $50,000 coach, or am I a $500 coach? And there's self-worth in that, and there's value, and there's things of that nature that come with that. On the other side of habits that develop are talking almost about like the checkbook example, where I'll just manage my business from looking at my bank account. I'm going to open up my bank, I'm going to look at the activity and see, do I have money or not have money? And it's just a really bad way to go about leading your business and leading the finances of your business.
Absolutely. That's reactive behavior, right? It's
Yes.
not proactive for sure.
Right.
You're leading from already in a position of being behind.
Correct. You're looking at yesterday, not tomorrow.
Ooh, ooh, I love that. Yes, yes, yes. Amen to that. Well, obviously, this is a topic that I'm super, super passionate about, because I do believe that money freedom creates time freedom, creates relationship freedom, creates freedom in other areas of our life. And I think that anybody is capable, right? Because we all have talents. We all have, individual things that make us special. But a lot of the times for people, let's just say coaches, for example, because you brought up coaches. I work with coaches, I work with speakers. They truly undervalue themselves
Mhm.
and forget that they actually have something the other person wants and needs, right?
Right.
So I think that's really important that we all have a purpose, we all have talents and abilities, and money is possible for anybody. But we are so much of the time the person that gets in the way of making that happen. I've met coaches that are phenomenal at their craft, but charge a, an amount that's almost embarrassingly low.
Mhm.
And I've met the other side of the coin, right? I'm sure you have as well. How, Josh, how do we get to that point where we take ownership and present our offer confidently without backing down? What do you think about that?
I think that separate, or I should say, in addition to the self-worth element of the conversation, there's an introspective piece of work that needs to be done as well. To me, this is where I think about the new role of a CFO. And the new role of the CFO to me is to really engage with people and to speak to that coach, to speak to a client, and allow them the space to tap into what is the vision that I have for myself. We often think about strategic planning and those elements in regards to business. And I think what becomes important is thinking about strategic planning of the individual. What is the, and I'm going to, we think very similarly. What is the freedom that I want in life? What is the impact that I want to create? And what is the profit needed to support that? And that can look in so many ways, and it's an ever evolving thing as a strategy. And one thing that I often see people get wrong, and this is on a business level, and then I want to address that pricing level. On the business level, so many people get the wrong advice of, I want to start a coaching business and I want to make $120,000 a year. And I'll use that just as the simple example of, great, that means I need to make $10,000 a month. And that has two fundamental flaws that will quickly run you out of business. Number one, that's assuming you can fill your calendar nonstop at that level. Number two, it quite frankly is at best a break even business and most likely a losing business because you forget that there are other expenses that come. So to have a healthy business that can pay you $120,000, you should aim for 240. And not only that, getting back to this life design and elements of thinking about your own future, maybe you want your summers free. Maybe you want December off for the holidays. So as you're thinking about pricing and as you're thinking about those elements, maybe you're not a 120 divide by 12, maybe you're a 120 divide by 10.
Mm.
And thinking about that will then fundamentally shift that target of 10,000 a month versus 12,000 a month. So that's a very kind of basic unit economic type of lens that I think it's fundamentally important for people to think through. So that is what would lead a person to a healthy business. The other piece, which you were touching on, is the pricing and the value, and to really think about what is not the hourly rate, which it's cliche at this point to think about trading time for money, although it's an easy place to go to and an easy thing to communicate to people. And the more abstract is that value building, that higher ticket. And the importance of high ticket is that the investment that it requires shows commitment. And
Mhm.
I've even experienced this myself when I've hired coaches, when I've hired other consultants to assist with my business, that for me to make that investment is my commitment to see that through. And if I'm talking about a $5,000, I don't know, we'll call it a marketing plan, strategy, brand strategy, versus a $500 one. A $500 one, I might be less committed to because if I don't follow through, it was only $500. And the deliverable could be exactly the same. So I think it's really important to think about not just the time, to think about a person's experience that they're bringing, the uniqueness that they're bringing, the relationship that they're bringing. And more importantly, the part that's lost most is the time and space and energy that you need to create for yourself as a service provider, as a coach, that allows you to show up in the way that you do. And though it may be an hour on Zoom together or an hour meeting coaching together, it also might be the half hour before you're taking a walk to clear your time and space. It's the time that you're bringing otherwise. So when you're thinking about value building, when you're thinking about that higher ticket, you really got to think about yourself and all that, and you have to think about the result that the other person's getting, what that will affect in their life.
100%. I love this advice. One thing that I picked up on from what you were saying, start with the end in mind. So many people don't understand that, right? But I like to reverse engineer things. And I like to think about, all right, what lifestyle do I want? You know, just like what you're saying, if maybe I want to take summers off. I have a child. She's 10 now. Her birthday was this week. Woohoo, right?
Happy
But
birthday.
yeah, but during the summer, hey, I can't work all day. It's not fair to her. So I have to engineer a lifestyle that works as, a mom.
Yeah.
So I think that's important too, because so many people burn from both ends. You know this as entrepreneurs. And at the end of the day, it leaves nothing for ourselves. And at what point are you just working for somebody else in a different costume?
Very much. And I would love to share a story of how I fell on my face, not taking
Please.
my
I love
notes
failures.
down.
I
Yeah,
love
right.
failure
That's where you
stories.
learn. So, um, I'll speak to it first from a mindset perspective, and then I'll speak to it from like a financial practicality perspective. The mindset perspective is when I started consulting, the line that I would tell myself and tell to others is that I would rather have four people pay me 25,000 a year than one job that paid me 100. And what I meant by it was the job that pays me 100 has a lot of demand on it, and the four people pay me 25 inherently had a lot more flexibility to me. And I would say that over and over and over. And for the first 10 years of my business, I made $100,000. And, call it law of attraction, call it manifesting, whatever it is, that became my reality because that was the mindset that I had. So then where did I fall on my face? When I was ready to grow, then the challenge became, how do I hire anybody? Or even very simplistically, like, cool, my laptop broke. How do I buy another laptop? And to have that vision of the future, like I was talking about, as you're talking about, and have that healthy business that has a healthy profit, then when it's time to hire somebody, you have the financial means to do that because you've had that vision and you've created that healthy business. And the delineation that can easily be forgotten is to think of yourself as healthy, financially provided for, and in a separate bucket over here, your business is healthy and financially provided for. And those are two mutually exclusive thoughts in that you're getting paid and there's profit. And that is where I fell on my face and I had to learn my own lesson the hard way and move me towards a trajectory of that so I could grow from a healthy standpoint.
Oh, I love that. I say it all the time. It makes people laugh, but this is true. I mean, it's true. The hardest I've ever worked in my life was the year I made $18,000. I swear, it's true.
Wow.
Right? Think about that.
Yeah.
I had to have a total mindset shift total habits shift, total everything shift, lifestyle everything. The next year, it was easy, regular $30,000 months
Yeah.
or 3 weeks. There was 1 week I made $30,000 that week. And it's like you don't realize it's possible sometimes if you're stuck in that, like, that wheel, that
Right.
cog, right? Of just exhaustion and burning at both ends. And you have to have that vision of the future. There's Joe Dispenza. A lot of people have heard of him. I love his work. He talks about don't forget the future. Remember the future. And on the surface, that sounds, how can you remember the future? It hasn't happened yet.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, it has. You're writing it right now.
Yeah.
Remember the future. And that's when we step into embodiment. That's when we step into a different level of person, a person that can hold a capacity to handle wealth, right?
Right. And to have a playfulness around it too.
Yes.
To and this isn't a comment or a concept that is dismissing the importance of money. This isn't playful of like, I got money from you. It's not that energy.
Mhm.
Rather, it's a playfulness around understanding the power that you have as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to have a vision, to create, to be creative, to think about your offer, to think about how you can show differently, to think about what if I do this instead of that. And I think also that playfulness, which we were touching on before, is to think about how you're affecting the wonderful people you get to work with. In that, and I'll go for a very extreme example in this because I think it highlights it really well, that if I were to spend 90 minutes on a call, and we'll leave the financial cost of that call out of it for the moment. And if I'm speaking to someone who has a $30 million business and I can affect them in a way that transforms the business by 1%,
Yep.
that's a $300,000 benefit to that bottom line. If we're tweaking pricing, if we're talking about discounts, if we're talking about whatever it may be. So for me to bring my financial lens to talk to that person and affect them in a short amount of time, because that business owner, that entrepreneur is phenomenal at what they do. And that's why that person was able to create a $30 million business. I bring my skill set and am able to affect them. And the scope and the magnitude, and I want to go back to this word, the playfulness of what you can create and benefit that you can bring to the world, to the entrepreneur, is really important to think about. And that's where you can't diminish yourself for time. You
Mm.
have to think about the value, because that value may be as direct as 30 million and having a 1% beneficial piece of advice. There could be a very intangible thing that I am bringing, that a coach is bringing, that any service provider is bringing, that, holy cow, you just unlocked something in my brain. Oh my goodness, now I'm going to create a second $30 million business. And there's so much intangible that can exist, and you have to let it be fun.
I love that. All right, Josh, we're going to do something off script.
Okay.
All right. So, like I said in the beginning, I've interviewed 3 billionaires for this show. And I told you before the show that I came up with a list of commonalities. I want to share those with you and with the audience. And then I want your feedback.
Okay.
Okay. This is fun. I love this. They don't wait for permission or perfect timing, they create both. They have regulated nervous systems. They're the calmest people in the room. They believe in themselves to the point of delusion. They don't care what other people think. Opinion is irrelevant when purpose is clear. They have crystal clear clarity on who they are, what they want, and where they're going. They prioritize play, which is what you're saying as well. They prioritize play and have it incorporated in their day always. And the last one, they are not victims of circumstance.
Mhm.
They are a result of choices and own outcomes. What do you think about that?
To me, there's such a through line with all of it. My favorite is the delusional
Yes, right?
aspect because to touch back on like how we go through school, how we're trained and to think about a job and to think about a market rate for this role and I'm going to get promoted, to think about creating something that can have impact in your community, impact in your country, impact in the world is delusional. No different than someone taking a CEO role and guiding Microsoft like there's a delusional aspect to that because of the size and magnitude. And there's a real simplicity in that too, which I think is just core fundamental leadership and vision and that confidence. And something that wasn't explicitly said within what you said, but it came up for me. And I don't know if this is something that's kind of unique to me or something that you saw within these billionaires, the willingness to be wrong, the willingness to
I like that.
talk ideas out, to be the crazy one in the room, in that maybe I'm going to say something absolutely ridiculous to you about some idea, uh and I'm willingness to do that because I don't have the fear and I have the confidence and all these attributes that you were listing, because I know that you might say something in response to my idea that will solidify or pivot my thought. And being able to hold that from a place of not having shame, I shouldn't speak in the negative, but in having that confidence and having that willingness to be vulnerable and and willingness to be wrong is what leads you on the path. And I think that becomes a nuance with a billionaire and quite frankly any business owner, is you're going into the unknown. And I think the thing that would surprise people is even to take something as normal and natural as having a fractional CFO bookkeeping business. There cannot be a more common business. And I get to take this in the trajectory that I want. I chose to have a creative moment and write a book. I get to create the brand in the world that I want. And at the same time, I'm delivering accounting, finance, advisory, CFO services. And I think to understand that power and that playfulness and that vulnerability and um that delusional belief is fun. And that's why we do this and not take a job and can create all that we want from that vision and from that place.
I love that. It's so true. And you're echoing something that, they don't care about it's not about caring about what other people think about you. I think so many of us are in our own heads and we constantly are, what are they thinking about me? Are they judging me? Get it out of your mindset. Focus on what's ahead. Focus on the purpose. Focus on creating. I love the fact that you took time to create something of value like a book and write. I'm a writer. There's not a day that goes by, and I'm a busy person. There's not a day that goes by ever where I don't write something because one, it's creative. 2, it's expressive. 3, it helps add value to other people.
Mhm.
And I think if that's, the mindset of what we have as business owners, that we are creative, that we add value in the marketplace, even if you have a business that other people have, you'll stand out and stay remembered, right?
Right, without a doubt. And in touching back on the calmness, I think the other side of that same coin of calmness is truly understanding that fear never goes away.
Yeah.
Just because you're a billionaire or just because you're a first time entrepreneur launching a business, there's fear. And quite frankly, there's probably fear for people who become Uber drivers. Will I get a ride? Will anyone get in my car? What am I even doing? That's an element of entrepreneurship in itself.
Yeah.
And understanding that fear always exists, and back to your comment of finding calm within that, is so important. And in that fear, in that calm, in this creative outlook of writing, and I'm curious if writing was the same for you, that for me, one of the surprising things is it wasn't about the writing and the outcome of a book per se. It was the journey of finding words. And
Mhm.
for me, having an editor who continuously challenged me on, please make that dumber. Please make that dumber. Don't use that word. I don't know what that means. Find a different word. Please make it dumber. I want to understand what you're saying, and I don't understand this technical language that you're using. And it challenged me to do such to do that. And ultimately, the outcome was a book. The outcome was also my ability to communicate with clients and potential clients better. It enabled me to sell, where if you look at my book revenue, it's a complete failure compared to the cost of that book. If you look at the trajectory that it provided with revenue in my business,
Yeah.
that's a completely different story. And so having that calmness, having that creativity, embracing the fear is, I think, what truly starts to set people apart.
I love that. And
Can I add one more piece? Because I think even the notion of billionaire can be a lot for people, and can be, you know, I will never, ever, ever, and not from a limiting belief, but perhaps in whatever regard. The thing that I wanted to add to that is the importance of an incredibility of being able to create a $500,000 business. To think how much that could even change your life. That if you've been in a role that you're making 60,000 a year, 85,000 a year, 150,000 a year, and to think about, even just to create that could radically and fundamentally change your life. And it doesn't have to be the next Facebook like people think. It doesn't have to be a billionaire status. That it can just be 4 times more than what your life is now. And how amazing would that be?
absolutely, right? I think that is such a, and it's not to compare yourself to other people and to diminish your worth or ha- carry shame around it. That's not
No.
what we're doing. But it's about thinking bigger. It's about
Yeah.
expansive, right? It's expansion. We're just expanding possibilities right now. And
And
we're
trade go back there too.
absolutely, absolutely. And, this is something that, if we're talking about the internal regulation, people might hear that and say, what the heck is she talking about? Right. So I do want to touch on that a little bit. When I say that every billionaire I've ever met is so calm, right? They're so calm. They're the calmest person in the room. They're regulated. What does that mean? Well, it means that they have not, it's not that they've never been broken. It's not that they've never failed. It's not that they've never experienced trauma. It's that they've healed themselves. Their past isn't showing up in their present. Whatever happened to them, whatever is not showing up right now. They've prioritized that self-healing. I think that's really important too, because money, if we're thinking about money, the frequency of money, the vibration of money, it's not attracted to chaos.
Right.
It's not attracted to dysregulation. It's not attracted to uncertainty. It's attracted to calm, confidence, and composure and clarity, right? Knowing exactly what you want and going after it in a calm, confident way. Not in a place of need or want or scarcity, but in a place of, I'm just stepping into it,
Right.
right? It's a big difference. And I feel like that's a whole podcast on itself, right? But
Yeah.
I think that this, level of success, even 4xing, 10xing your business, is possible for anyone who's listening right now if we start with these small steps, right?
It is small steps. And to take that into a pun, it's often for me going for walks and
Yes. I love
going,
that.
and if it's a 5-minute walk, a 10-minute walk, with no motivation, with no objective other than to allow my brain to rest, which usually turns into an idea, which usually turns into a pause during the walk and taking out my notes app and writing down a sentence that's coming to mind. And it may be for nothing. And I think most often it's mindset, and it's allowing yourself the space, knowing how to regulate, because I love how you're talking about sort of regulation, dysregulation, knowing how to regulate, knowing that you could be on a call with somebody and they might be losing their mind, and you have to know how to hold yourself. Blanketly, we're talking about boundaries, and to know, what, I'm running 10 minutes late. Can we push back our call? Because that to be able to step outside and not go call to call will ground you again. And those are the things that lead to the abundance, that lead to you showing up as your best self, that lead to, oh my goodness, that's what I'm trying to communicate. That's what I'm trying to sell. And it's that regulation that's such a huge part of it, because with fear and this delusion, the thing that is right up against that often, I think, is a huge amount of insecurity. So you're working through insecurity right along delusion and belief and self-belief. And there's a very thin line between those two. So that opportunity, that ability to know yourself, to learn yourself well enough to know what your thing is. And maybe it's going to the gym, and maybe it's eating healthy, and maybe it's going for walks. Maybe it's traveling and taking a 5-day weekend once a month, whatever it is, a road trip. It's so important to find that thing in yourself.
100%. And people ask me, why confidence? Right? Why do you talk about confidence? Well, if you're not confident, you won't show up as competent.
Mhm.
And ultimately, what leads to success? You're portraying yourself as a confident person, other people portraying you as a then competent person, and having a belief, because before words, right, comes belief. Before actions comes belief. So we live in a world right now that we sell and celebrate the byproduct of all of this. But it's about getting to the root. And when we get to the root, and when we heal, when we practice internal regulation, when we develop our confidence, when we work on our belief system, all of these other byproducts come as a result of that internal work.
Right.
This is why I'm so passionate about this, because it leads to success in all areas of life, not just money, right? We're talking about money today, but not just money. Success in relationships, success in, the people you attract in your life, success in your family, how regulated you are at home. Again, success and capacity for wealth and abundance, right? So I love this conversation, Josh. Lots and lots of wisdom here. If you had one piece of wisdom to say, one actionable takeaway for the listeners, right, who are listening to this podcast, who say, I'm ready, Josh and Tara. I'm ready. I'm ready to go to that next level. I'm ready to 10x it or whatever their goal is.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person right now?
I love my redefinition of MVP, which MVP as an acronym that means different things to different people. I'm thinking not most valuable player in sports. I'm thinking sort of, then there's minimum viable product when launching a product, or there's mission, vision, and purpose. And I want to bring a nuance to mission, vision, purpose. Whether you're thinking about starting a business, if you have a business, you're trying to grow a business, whatever it may be, the one takeaway I would think about it in the context of all that we've talked about today is think about mission in that, why did I start this business? What is not what are we delivering to people, et cetera, but me, I started CFO Minded. Why did I do this? Vision, to not think about the vision of the company, but to think about the vision of self, of going back to what is this freedom I want to create for myself in my life, in my personal life, not just professionally. What is the impact that I want to create on the folks who work with me, on my clients, in my community, whatever it is. And again, then P being the profit of what is the profit to support that. And I think that clarity on why do I do this? Who am I and where do I want to be? And then what is that purpose? What do I want to bring every day? What is the profit that really makes this healthy and thrive?
Love that. Such a well rounded approach that we can all do right now. I encourage everybody, take out a pen and paper, write it down. What does that mean to you? And live by it, right? Live by it. Take action on it right now, today. There's no better time to take action. This is it. So let's go. It's 2026. We're here. People have big goals. Let's achieve them all. Josh, thank you so much for coming on this show today. And thank you, everyone who tuned in to this episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast. Guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a review on Apple with your favorite takeaway from what Josh said in this episode. I read every review personally and love and appreciate every single one of them. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.